Hey, and welcome back to Read Becca. I'm sure there are loads of reviews out there. This book does not need another review, but I really just wanted to do a very brief, quick gush over this book because I really enjoyed it. And that book that I'm talking about is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk and translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. So, this book is really a murder mystery. This is one of those fun ones that gets shelved as literary fiction, but it's genre fiction, deep down. And the most fun part of this is that it has a grumpy old lady protagonist. Yes, I love a grumpy old lady protagonist. We follow Mrs. Desechko, and she is kind of a hermit. She lives off by herself. She doesn't really have a lot of friends. She's kind of the kooky old lady of the village. So the novel starts with her being woken up and her neighbor is at her door saying that she needs to come help him because their other neighbor has died. So they go, and this neighbor has died in kind of a compromising position. So they end up calling the police, but they discover that he has choked on a bone, and she realizes he is a notorious poacher that she kind of always disliked. And so she thinks the deer killed him. Seems like a wild idea, but then more people begin dying. And she gets it stuck in her head that the animals are seeking justice. And so she starts writing these impassioned letters to the cops, saying that the animals are to blame for these deaths. And we get the letters on page. So that is a really funny element. She also is very into astrology. So when she talks about astrology, though, she spends more time talking about the stars than like actual horoscopes, but she believes that she can predict anything with that. And she has drawn all these conclusions from her astrology work that the cosmos is telling her that the animals are killing people. So let me quickly read something she says because I love the writing. It's so beautiful. I see everything as if in a dark mirror, as if through smoked glass. I view the world in the same way as others look at the sun in eclipse. Thus I see the earth in eclipse. I see us moving about blindly in eternal gloom, like maybugs trapped in the box by a cruel child. It's easy to harm and injure us, to smash up our intricately assembled, bizarre existence. I interpret everything as abnormal, terrible, and threatening. I see nothing but catastrophes. But as the fall is the beginning, can we possibly fall even lower? It reads so much like nature writing a lot of the time in this book. It's so atmospheric, and I kept thinking of like Catherine Arden's writing in Bear and the Nightingale. It gave me really the same vibes and that heavy dose of atmosphere that you get there. So I really love the writing. It is amazing that this is translated as well. So I don't know how much to attribute to the author versus the translator, because there is so much said in fairly concise words. This is not flowery by any means, but it chooses its words well, and it uses them to convey a really layered message. So it's saying what it's saying, but then it's also conveying a subtext. So on top of all that, because she's a kind of cranky old woman and nobody really likes her, she has very few friends. And so at the beginning of this, she has kind of one friend really. And again, back to the translator element, her and her friend are working on translating the works of William Blake. So we get these almost meta moments where she and this friend are working on translating a couplet, a piece of poetry. And it actually says, but in Polish, you can't get this sing-songy rhyme, that this is in English, right? But I'm reading it in English, so I do get the sing-songy rhyme. So I'm wondering what it was like in Polish. But then later, in another section, we have basically 3 options they've come up with for translating a section of poetry. And so we're reading it translated from English to Polish and back to English for those 3 options. So I didn't look it up, but I'm wondering if one of those is the real poem. And then the translator having to do that work of what it was originally versus the Polish options versus bringing it back to English. And that was so interesting. This is up on Litfic shelves, so You often think of that as being something that is doing things maybe experimental or really dense prose, things like that, but it really wasn't. This is just a mystery novel. So it made me think a little bit of The Body Lies, where that one as well has been foisted as lit fic, but really it's just a suspense thriller novel, and it's got some very interesting, smart themes. So this is kind of the same, where I had some problems with it, though it's very heavy-handed in how it's handling its messaging, really. Mrs. Desejko obviously has some strong feelings about animals, and I found it really interesting that she kind of views animals as complete equals. So when people are talking about hunting or eating meat, then she basically sees that as exactly the same as if someone were killing another person. So she has a really interesting lens, but the way that it goes about constantly hammering it at that point, it's just a little much. But in the same way with Body Lies, I do think it had a ton of interesting stuff to say. So it's not quite a 5-star for me, but I feel like it should be, because it's one that I'm going to be thinking about and is going to be in my head for a really long time. So I enjoyed this a lot, and if you enjoy mysteries, if you enjoy a grumpy old lady, I highly, highly recommend it.